Public safety diving. What is it? Who can become a public safety diver? Can you actually earn a living by public safety diving? And what are public safety dive teams? Did you know that there was both public safety dive teams and private public safety dive teams? Well, in today's video, we're going to answer all those questions and give you a better understanding of what public safety diving is and whether or not you can become a public safety diver. What's up, guys? It's Brian again from Lake Hickory Scuba and Marina. If you are new to our channel, do me a huge favor. Hit this little subscribe button over here and ding that little bell as well. That way you guys are going to be notified every time we upload new content. Now, as we stated in the teaser, we're going to be talking about public safety diving, what public safety diving is, how you can get involved in it, and can you earn a living for it, and more importantly, what is the difference, say, between a public team and a private team, because there has been a huge growth in the private public safety diving system in just the last few years. So with that being said, let me give you a quick background on who I am and my expertise in the level, and hopefully this video is going to help you out in the future, whether you're wanting to go down that pathway or just to give you a better understanding about what public safety diving is. So who am I? My name is Brian Stafford. I am co-owner at Lake Hickory Scuba and Marina here in Taylorsville, North Carolina. I am currently an SSI instructor trainer. I've been diving since 1988, and I started my career in the public service in 2004. I started out as a local firefighter, moved on to the sheriff's department here locally, and then I moved over to an adjacent city and I worked as a police officer. Outside of that, I also served at a local EMS crew as a basic, and I've just been a public servant ever since. Now, I did retire out of that industry in 2021, but all throughout that time, I was a dive instructor. I worked here in the scuba industry as well, and I actually served as a public safety diver and underwater criminal investigator during that time as well. Now, out of my time there, of course, I served on 7 different dive teams. 3 of those teams which I ran or I captained, and then of course I currently own and operate a private public safety dive team. So now that you got a better understanding of my background, let's get into today's topic and let's learn a little bit more about public safety diving. So what is public safety diving? Public safety diving is a specialty in, say, the scuba spectrum or in scuba education, where someone who is a public servant, whether it's police, fire, EMS, it could be even the military, that has specialized training in certain areas of diving, such as search and recovery techniques, underwater criminal investigation techniques. It could be in boat operations or even surface water or even swift water rescue. And it's kind of a combination of all those put together. Now, each team is going to be a little bit different. So a local law enforcement team, they may be versed with just simply going out and doing investigations, to where the fire department team, they may be going out to do rescues, whether it's surface water, swift water, or even underwater recoveries as well. So each E&T or each department is going to have their specialty areas within, say, that public safety field. Now, one thing that sets public safety diving apart from, say, recreational or even technical diving is this is not a solo type situation. This is really a team-based operation, if you will. Now, yes, you may be solo. That means you may be underneath the water by yourself. However, you're still going to have a team that's going to be working with you. 99% of the time, you're going to be tethered to the surface via tender, and there's going to be a backup diver that can be deployed at any given time if you have problems. Typically in public safety diving, you're going to have some type of communications, whether it's through your tether or your tender itself, or it can be through some type of digital communications. Most of us wear full face masks, most of us wear dry suits and things of that sort, and a lot of that training comes from the recreational and technical industry. However, this is a little bit different than just you going out and getting a search and recovery, sir, or you going out and getting a dry suit. There's other things that have to be considered whenever you're doing public safety diving, such as hazmat and other environmental concerns and things like that. So this is a team-based environment or a team-based operation that there are tons of rules that we have to follow, primarily for safety, but there's also policies and procedures that your department may have. So who can actually become a public safety diver? Well, depending on what training agency you go through, there are going to be different requirements or different prerequisites that you must have before you can take actual public safety courses. With SSI, they do require just the open water course to get started for the public public safety diver course. However, to become the rescue team diver, you do have to be a member of a public service department of some type, whether a rescue squad, a fire department, some type of a law enforcement agency, or even just the military itself. But now let's say that you do go out and you get these certifications and you do serve on a team. There's a lot of different things that you've got to take into consideration before you go out for an operational call out, such as policies, procedures, SOGs, SOPs, and OSHA requirements and NFPA standards. And towards the end of this video, we're going to look at the NFPA standards that are required for most government related teams that actually don't apply towards private teams, and we'll kind of explain the difference between both public and private teams as well. But let's say this is something that you're actually wanting to get into. I'm going to put you several links down below to the SSI courses that are offered for public safety diving. The first one's called Public Safety Diver. The second one is Rescue Team Diver, and there is a huge difference between the two as well. One is a prerequisite to the next, and they are some pretty intense courses, if I do say so myself. But all that being said, this is something that you can do if you are already, say, a volunteer fireman, a police officer, a deputy sheriff, or even rescue personnel. So definitely check those links out if you find this interesting. Now, before we go any further with this, I do want to put a quick disclaimer out here. I completely understand that there are plenty of departments out there that have teams that unfortunately are simply not trained up where they need to be, or they are under-equipped, whether it's due to lack of funding, they can't afford the training, they can't afford the gear, but yet they are still putting their lives at risk to serve their local communities. And I do commend you, and by all means, I think it's great what you guys are doing, but once again, we have to put safety first here. So if you happen to be a member of a team and you do not have the proper training, nor do you have the proper equipment, nor does your department have the funding to do this, I would really encourage you to somehow come up with the money, whether it's the department paying for it or you paying out of pocket for it. Make sure you're getting properly trained and properly equipped to do this, because public safety diving is completely different than the recreational, technical, and even the commercial side of things in general. Typically speaking, on all operational callouts, we are dealing with hazmatic situations. If you're not in a dry suit and a full face mask, by all means, please go out, purchase them, get trained on it so that you can stay safe, so that you can continue to help your local community out. Like I said, guys, I commend you. I've been part of those departments where there was unfortunately no funding for that department to pay for its membership, and us as the members, we had to go out and we had to pay out of pocket to get that training. So if you happen to be part of that say department situation, please go out and get properly trained, save up the money, do what you got to, because nobody wants you to be unsafe when you're doing this. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the differences between, say, a volunteer team and a paid team, and we'll also look at the differences between, say, a public safety team and a private public safety team as well. So let's look at the volunteer teams first. Typically, a volunteer team is going to be, say, a rescue squad or a fire department who just answers calls whenever that comes in. They don't typically work at the department. They usually have other full-time paying careers, and just whenever they get a call, they'll leave that job and they'll go out to answer a call, whether it's a fire call, a wreck, or an emergency rescue or something of that sort, or even in this case, some type of dive team call out, and then they just assemble their team and they take care of business when needed. Now, with volunteer teams in general, it's typically volunteer, which means they're not getting paid to do this, and as I stated earlier, they tend to be a little unfunded in the situations, which means they're not going to have all the best equipment or the right equipment to do every single call out that they can. Now, when we think about a paid team, these are usually your larger departments, say big city departments who have some type of waterway. They're going to have a lot more tax money coming in to where they can afford a lot better gear or safer gear. They're going to be able to afford to pay their guys to be able to do this full time. They're not just a team that assembles when a call out, they actually train full time for this. And I have personally trained teams that train weekly, like they will train for 3 or 4 days straight, and they'll have 2 or 3 days throughout the week that they are actually on operational call out. And these are typically your really large cities or larger departments where they might have a 20, 30, and even up to, say, a 40 member dive team. I think the largest dive team I've ever trained's got over 80 members on their dive team. A lot of times your volunteer teams might have maybe, say, up to 8 or just 10 members. So you can kind of see the difference there between volunteer and actually paid members, which leads me into my next thing. Can you actually make money doing public safety diving? Well, yes and no. So If you're part of, say, a paid team, then of course it might be your primary job. That might be all that you do for that department, or it might be part of your general skill set. So you might be, say, a paid firefighter that's on a paid dive team, and you're getting paid no matter what your job is, whether you're answering fire calls or rec calls or rescue calls or water calls. You're getting paid the same amount no matter what you're doing. Now, you will see very quickly when we start talking about private dive teams how that money's going to be a lot better than what, say, a public dive team is. However, there's other things to consider when we talk about private teams as well, as about how you obtain jobs and things like that. Now, whether you're a part of, say, a volunteer team or a private dive team, one of the things that I really want to stress to you guys is continue your training. No matter what, the agency itself does not matter. Go out, get proper training, and continue to train. You know, one of the things I tell a lot of teams when I'm teaching them is you need to have, at a minimum, a 1 day a month training period where you guys get together. You also need a 1 day a month where you just get together for fun to go diving, to keep up your basic skill sets in diving. Don't worry about search and recovery skills. Don't worry about underwater communications or search and things like that. Just focus on basic skills, whether it's, out of air emergency drills, whether it's buoyancy related skills, whether it's equipment related skills, and have fun with it when you're training. So at least 1 day a month you should be training in operational callouts. Another day a month you should be training in just standard scuba skills. And on top of all that, simply go diving. Don't just dive when you have training with your department. Don't just dive when you have an operational call out, but go out and continue to train, dive as much as you can, because yes, this is a specialty area of diving, but if you're not comfortable as a diver in general in the best conditions, you're definitely not going to be comfortable, nor are you going to be safe or an asset to your team in the worst conditions possible. So now let's go ahead and change gears a little bit, and let's talk about the private sector and why there's been such a huge growth in the private public safety dive team sector of this, say, industry itself. One of the big reasons that a lot of teams go private versus stay in public is simply for funding. At a base price, it's going to cost the department anywhere between, say, $5,000 and $7,000 to properly train one of their personnel and to properly get them equipped. Now, you start adding that money up really quick when you have an 8 to 10 member dive team. You will see just how much money it takes to simply get somebody to trained up and to be equipped up to where they need to be to do this safely. And a lot of departments, especially volunteer departments, are simply not going to have that funding. Yes, they can reach out, they can apply for grants, but there's so many other things that that department has to worry about. They simply don't really focus on the whole water side of it. Now, even with paid teams, whether they got tax money coming in or they apply for grants, there's still so much other avenues that those departments worry about, to where diving has kind of took the low side of it, or they're always the last man on the totem pole to really get the funding they need. So this is where private teams come into play. Private teams are typically made up of, say, public safety divers from other departments who have come together and they're already properly trained, they already have the proper equipment, and all they do is simply contract. Those teams will contract with said departments. Now, if you took a team, let's say, of 10 members, and it took $7,000 to equip each of those members and get them properly trained, that is $70,000 just to get that team up and running. But if you've got a dive team that is already established, they already have all the equipment, they already have all the training, and they are former or even still current public safety members, they can get work under a contract basis for that department, basically where when a call comes out, they are contacted, they work under contract, and it's going to be far less of an expense for that department than to simply use their own members. And we've not even touched the surface when it comes to insurance liability and things like that. So you can see very quickly a lot of teams, whether it's a volunteer team or a paid team, they are going to be hindered simply based off the funding itself, to where if they hire out private teams to do this, then of course they're not going to have that same financial burden as what they would if they were using their own membership. Now, one of the biggest differences outside of financial burdens, if you will, from, say, a public safety dive team and a private public safety dive team are all of the requirements, such as NFPA requirements and OSHA. Now, both teams are going to be kind of bound by what OSHA requires them to do, especially because this is still a business, so to speak, even for a private team. But for a public team, they're also going to be held under the NFPA standards. There's certain things that their state and the NFPA is going to require them to do. There's also is going to be a ton of restrictions that the NFPA is going to hold them back from, simply because either one, they're not trained and they shouldn't be doing certain types of dives, or number two, it's based off their state recommendations. So if your state has, say, policies and procedures put into place for what a public team can do, that really does not apply to a private business or a private E&T who is simply hired under contract. Now, what do I mean by contract? There's several different contracts that you can do if you're a private team. One of the ones I've done in the past is simply a retainer contract. That just simply means they pay a certain amount of money for us, and we operate regardless of how many calls a year that they get. We can simply operate under that retainer fee. Or a department can write up a contract with us and they can say, okay, we will pay you so much per call out. And it just depends. If you're in an area of very high column, sometimes that retainer fee is a lot less of a burden on you financially than paying us per call. Or if you're in an area where you might only get 1 or 2 call outs a year, paying us per call out is going to be a lot less than, say, paying that retainer fee as well. And each geographical area, there's going to be a different price. So I'm not going to get into price of what it actually costs. Just understand that there's going to be different financial requirements based off where your geographical area as well. But whether you choose to be a private team or a, say, public team, of course, there's going to be different standards, NFPA standards, OSHA standards, and then, of course, each team's going to have its own policy and procedures that they are going to put in place for safety concerns as well. And the individual members need to understand they need to abide by whatever that policy or procedure is put in place. We have a very strict training regimen here for our private team. Our guys are required to train at least 4 to 5 times a month, depending on what we are doing throughout that month. And now we are a very unique team in the fact that not only do we do public safety diving, we also do commercial and salvage work as well. So we kind of combine all that and we give our guys credit. So if they're out on a salvage call, they're retrieving a boat and we're cleaning up the environment, we can count that as training as well. And each department's going to have their own policies and procedures on how you handle certain situations. So as I stated earlier, I prefer at least a 2-day-a-month training ops, if you will. One day is going to be simply for operational call-outs. One's just going to be for regular open water diving, if you will, just to keep your skills up. But I do give my guys credit. So like even last week, we did 4 commercial call-outs last week. We did 1 public safety dive call-out last week. And we also had a salvage job that we had to go do as well. So I gave my guys credit because the same type of diving that we're doing in public safety is typically going to be the same type of diving we do in salvage and things like that too. So please make sure that these teams are going out and they're training and they're staying within their policies and procedures and not doing things that they shouldn't be doing simply because they're not trained to do it. So before I end this video, I do want to leave you with a little bit of words of encouragement. First of all, to any divers out there that work for a department that are actively serving as a public safety diver, but you do not have a public safety cert or a rescue team cert or something of that type, I would encourage you to go out and get properly trained and properly equipped to do this. Yes, I understand you've probably been doing it for many, many years. I understand there's tons of instructors out there that's been doing that. But once again, you got to understand you are inherently risking yourself for an inanimate object, whether you're retrieving, say, a victim or you're retrieving, say, some type of evidence. So please make sure you are getting properly trained and continue to do what you're doing to help out your local community. Just remember this, you cannot help them if you can't help yourself first. So please go out and get properly trained. And to all public safety divers out there, whether you have a certification or not, I want to give a huge thank you for you to go out there and serve your community and to basically risk yourself the way you do to help serve the community and make it a better place as well. We are a very tight-knit group in the public safety field. If we look at the spectrum of the scuba industry, the public safety field is this tiny little slither in the spectrum of say diving in general. So we are a very tight-knit group. We are a family. I know all the teams that I personally served on, I would do anything for any of the guys that I've served with. Even my guys here at the shop that work for me, I would basically give up my life for those guys, which leads me into the next part of this really quick. I am going to drop a link down below of a NIOSH report that I really think you guys should go and read. This was a local public safety diver. He was not part of our team. However, he was local here, who lost his life in the line of duty due to some mismanagement of skills. That's the the easiest way I can say this without really throwing him under the bus here, unfortunately, he forgot some basic scuba skills due to the situation he was in. But in short, he went to go retrieve a body. Unfortunately, he got into a situation that he couldn't control, and he violated some of the basic rules that you learn in the open water program. And this is why it is so important for you to continue to train so that you can always come or overcome those stressful situations. And this is also why it's so important that you are properly trained to go out and do what you've been doing and what you want to continue to do as well. So yeah, go out there, get trained, get equipped, and continue to help your local community. And thank you to each and every one of you. So guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I really hope this kind of gives you a better understanding of what public safety diving is, who can become a public safety diver, can you actually earn a living from doing this, and then of course, what's the difference, say, between a public team and a private team as well. There'll actually be several more links down below for you if you're interested in the SSI programs. There's actually 2 programs that SSI teaches. It is the Public Safety Diver and the Public Safety Rescue Team Diver course as well. They're very intense programs. I know when they first release them, even as an instructor trainer, I had to go and retake these courses as well. And even at my age, it was a very difficult course, but it was a very educational course, and it was a very encouraging course, which means it encouraged me to continue my training, to continue to learn, to continue to grow as a diver, and to continue to be safe as well. So I really think those courses are going to be great for you, so definitely check those out as well. But if you got any questions, comments, or concerns about public safety diving, drop me a comment down below and I'll try to answer your questions the best I can. If you are part of a team and you need say a private consult as far as how you can make your team even better, reach out to Brian at lakehickoryscuba.com. I'll put my email down here for you, and I'll be glad to do a free consult with you, your team, your department head or whatnot, to see how we can help you grow as a public safety dive team and to become better and safer divers as well, and how you can continue to help your community. If you are not a current public safety diver, but you are part of, say, a fire department, a police department, a sheriff's department, or a rescue squad, or any of the above, and you guys want to start a team, reach out to me as well, and I can do whatever I can to help you guys get started, to stay safe and to continue to serve your community the way that you've been doing it. But guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, give me a big thumbs up. Definitely share it. Once again, if you got any questions, comments, or concerns, drop me a comment down below and we'll discuss. But until our next video, take care, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.